Is there such a thing as a woman's religion? Well, that's a tough question to answer. The dilemma that I faced was how to even begin to approach such a question. After long deliberation, I realized, well, maybe I should first define religion. So, what is religion? One definition, according to our folks at Webster, is the service and worship of God or the supernatural, a commitment or devotion to religious faith or observance, or a personal set or institutionalized system of religious attitudes, beliefs, and practices. The etymology is from religare, re meaning again, and legare to bind, or from the ligaments. So literally to bind back. Okay, so now I have religion defined. What next? I didn't really know where to go. So a light went off in my head, and I thought of one of my favorite books, which is The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. The book was originally published in 1942, and it's a series of letters between a senior demon and a junior demon. The senior demon's name is Screwtape, and the junior demon is his nephew by the name of Wormwood. And the book is essentially the uncle's mentorship pertaining to his nephew's new responsibility in securing the damnation of a British soul or a British man. And there's a quote in there in the Screwtape Letters, and it says, "It's funny how mortals always picture us as putting things into their minds. In reality, our best work is done by keeping things out." So I started thinking about examples from the Old Testament or New Testament that are relevant to something that is lost and restored. And there's many examples, but one that kept popping into my mind was that of Josiah and the Book of the Law. And in 2 Kings in the Old Testament, chapters 22 through 23, it recounts King Josiah essentially finding something that is lost, and the way that Screwtape is telling his nephew that their best work is done by keeping things out of humans' minds. Well, in this way, the Book of the Law was lost from the people, and the result was that the people were fallen into a state of wickedness.
In the 18th year of his reign, he began to repair the temple his fathers had destroyed. For Josiah had inherited a wicked people, and the records of the Lord's words kept by Moses had been lost. And Josiah sought after the true God of Israel, and began to purge Israel of false gods, beginning with those in the courts of the house of the Lord. But notwithstanding Josiah's efforts to remove these abominations from the midst of his people, he could not purge them from their hearts and minds.
My king, I come with word. The silver that is in the temple treasury shall be gathered tomorrow and delivered to the workmen that do labor on the temple.
In their hands shall the temple of the Lord be again made whole, and with it the hearts of a few will be recovered. Yet many with their eyes will not see. And with their ears will they not hear.
High priest, is there not anything more that can make this people again return to the true God, the Lord God of Israel?
Who among this people remembers the God of whom you speak? For surely, if you seek to reclaim them to a God today, you need look no further than this pile of dust.
Such was the evil that had taken root among the Lord's people. Indeed, such was the evil that had taken root in my own heart.
My king, the high priest has discovered an ancient book hidden in the temple and has delivered it unto me. It is the book of the law. That which was given by Moses.
These many days you come to me and talk of silver and of the works of men. And yet today, the Lord my God has heard my prayers.
And Shaphan the scribe read the book of the law unto the king. And the king heard the word of the Lord as if spoken for the first time.
So just as Josiah felt enlightened, felt the Spirit of the Lord for the first time upon hearing the words of the Lord or the book of the law, it changed him, and it ended up changing his entire kingdom. So going back to the screw tape letters, and our best work is done by keeping things out. So what is being kept out nowadays? Well, to me, as a so to speak an outsider looking in, as a male, one thing that I see that is being kept out is the emphasis on the righteous women from the scriptures being held up as an example to others. One thing I would like to do is to focus on an artist by the name of Steve Nethercott and some of his works of art. In his works of art, he does what I never found or never saw when I was growing up, which was he takes the scriptures and stories from the scriptures of women, of powerful women, of heroic women, and creates artwork around them. And I think what he does here is exactly a counter to what Wormwood and Screwtape are trying to do, which has been done for many, many centuries, which is to diminish the role of women in the church, diminish the role of women in society. And yet here he does the opposite. He holds them up as exemplars. So first you have Esther, the queen of Persia, who was a Jew and she's a story of courage. She was willing to sacrifice her life with the hope that she would be able to save all of the Jews that were currently living in Persia. Next you have the story of Rebecca at the well, which is a story of knowing individual worth, she eventually became the wife of Isaac, and and from Isaac you have Jacob and the 12 tribes of Israel. Next you have the story of Ruth, and Ruth and Naomi. Ruth was Naomi's daughter-in-law, and Naomi was in a sad place, and asked her daughters to leave her to die, and Ruth refused. Ruth refused to leave her to die, and said that she would stay with her. And Ruth is really a true story of loyalty. Next, you have the story of Hannah, who is a story of faith, and she was unable to bear a child, but she prayed with faith to the Lord that she would have a child, and that if she would have a child, that she would dedicate that child to the Lord, and she did. And the child was Samuel, the prophet. Next, you have the story of Mary, who gave birth to Christ and saw Christ, her son, crucified on the cross in pure agony, and stayed with him through his entire ministry and through the resurrection and onwards. And finally, we have another piece of art that is not by Steve Nethercott, but I feel is just as important. Um, It is a picture of a young mother tending to her young plant or her young child, and hovering over her is her eternal mother, and there's a quote that I'd like to share. It says, "Motherhood is near to divinity. It is the highest, holiest service to be assumed by mankind. It places her who honors its holy calling and service next to the angels. We know that the culminating act of all creation was the creation of woman." So, in conclusion, to answer my question, is there such a thing as a woman's religion? I would say yes, there is. If you go to the original definition of a religion and the etymology of the word, to bind back, what do these stories do for the modern reader? They help the young women of today bind themselves back to the great exemplars throughout history and throughout the breadth of religious um, scholarship and stories to these women, and hopefully that these stories can gain more emphasis in the future.